all the participants. I welcome you all to JSIA Webinar Series 2020, and I hope all of you are safe and doing well. As you all know, today's topic of the webinar, we would be discussing careers in diplomacy, NGOs, and international organizations. And it will be presented by Professor Dr. Ambassador Kumar. Dr. Kumar is a professor and vice dean at Jindal School of International Affairs. He had an outstanding career in Indian Foreign Service, lasting 36 years, which culminated in his being India's ambassador to France, based in Paris. Post the presentation from Dr. Kumar, we would be taking questions from all the participants on the subject. And I would be happy to answer any non-academic questions for you. First, if we could start with the presentation, please.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for that kind introduction. Is there a way of checking whether everybody can hear me? I will assume that everybody can hear me. And as the presenter was saying, I'm the Vice Dean.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you. So I'm Vice Dean and Professor at the Jindal School of International Affairs, and I'm here to explain and outline the rationale as to why you should join two courses offered by the Jindal School of International Affairs. One is the Bachelor of Arts, Global Affairs, and the other is the Master of Arts, DLB, which is Diplomacy, Law, Business. The Jindal School of International Affairs is a relatively young school, but I think you would have done your Google search and your homework to know that it is now the School of International Affairs in the country. And within a short period of time, just 10, 11 years, we have managed to carve out a niche in this special area of international affairs. I must say that I myself, after retiring from the Indian Foreign Service as ambassador to Paris, I have enjoyed teaching the students at the School of International Affairs. And I must say I'm impressed with the faculty, I'm impressed with the infrastructure, and last but not least, I'm also impressed with the quality of students that I happen to teach. So we'll begin with the Bachelor of Arts, Global Affairs, if you allow me. And the way I see this course, we were inspired by the Tufts University Fletcher School of Diplomacy. It's one of the leading schools of international affairs in the world. So we drew our inspiration from that school. And if I can begin by answering one question that I know all of you would have in your minds as to why join the BA Global Affairs? So why BAGA? Let me begin by addressing that question. The first answer to that question is that if you are passionately fond of international affairs, then the answer is a no-brainer. There is no other comparable course in at least the northern part of the country. There is no other university or academic institution that offers a comparable course to the BAGA, what we call BAGA. So that answer is fairly straightforward. If you are passionate about international affairs and you've come to realize that that is your vocation, that is your calling, then I would say just go for it with your eyes closed. You won't be disappointed. The second question that you might have is, I'm not sure that I'm really going to have a career in international affairs. It's too early to tell. I'm interested in international affairs, but I'm not so sure that that is something that I want to do the rest of my life. I call, for those students who may be in that category, I call the BAGA the bridge course. That is, it offers you a bridge to do other things after your bachelor's degree. And by the way, it's perfectly all right if you are not able to make up your mind at this stage that you are passionately fond of international affairs. That's fine. Some of us knew, I mean, if you allow me to offer you a personal anecdote, as early as 16 years old, I was quite clear in my mind that I wanted to do something related to international affairs. I had no guarantee of knowing that I would make it to the Indian Foreign Service, but I knew that I had to do something which was connected to international affairs. But even those who may not be so clear, and even if you say, okay, I'm not sure that I'm passionate about this subject, I think the BAGA offers you a very important bridge that you can do this course and then see what you want to do in your life. So on the one hand, the BAGA offers what would be very akin to a BA political science, which is we do a lot of political science, we do a lot of international affairs, we do economics, we do statistics, we do quantitative analysis. So that is the stuff of many, many bachelor courses. So that is not what distinguishes BAGA. That is something that gives you a basic grounding like many other courses. So that is something that we do as well in the first year. But if you want me to tell you how the BAGA is different, why the BAGA is special, and why you should be opting for this course, then I have a number of other reasons to tell you. The first one that springs to mind as far as I'm concerned is that there are very few institutions in the country which would allow you to pick an area for specialization at the level of the bachelor's degree. Most bachelor degrees are general. They are very, very framework oriented. You have a smattering of this and that, and then you are allowed to do whatever you want to do at the master's level. This BAGA is substantially different, and I'll give you some examples. For instance, if you are interested in global migration, for example, then we have experts. By the way, I should have told you earlier, this is one of the few institutions in which we pride ourselves on the ratio of student faculty of 1:10. There are very, very few institutions in India which would have a ratio of 1:10. So the School of International Affairs has about 30 to 32 faculty, and we have a student population of 330 or 340. That is not the kind of student faculty ratio that you will get in other universities or in a classic university in Delhi or in the country. So I would begin by saying the kind of personal attention that a faculty professor is able to give you in the Jindal School of International Affairs is rare. Expertise and demonstrable expertise. So not to be immodest, but if I am teaching diplomatic practice, I do it on the basis of 36 years that I spent in the Indian Foreign Service. So it is not theoretical. A theoretical course in international relations that you do in any other university would have a professor perhaps talking very eloquently about international relations, but to get it from somebody who has practiced the profession for 36 years, I think gives you a perspective that is completely different. Similarly, if you take global migration, and I was talking about migration earlier, we have professors who have dealt with migration, who have been associated with the International Organization of Migration, who know the subject inside out. Similarly, we have a professor who's doing China. She speaks Chinese. She has visited China several times. She understands China's foreign policy. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you have a professor in the Jindal School of International Affairs teaching you, and I'm talking the bachelor's level now, not the master's, even at the bachelor's level, if you have a professor talking to you about global migration, about Israel's foreign policy, Chinese foreign policy, you can be certain that it is done by a professor who knows the subject, who has acquired expertise in the subject, and who's able to give you insights that other institutions may not be able to do. So that's the first thing that I would say. So after the first, let's say 3 semesters, from the 4th semester onwards, students who study at Jindal School of International Affairs and who do BAGA can specialize or take subjects that they are fond of. So if you are looking to do a course on WTO, I will teach you WTO because I spent 10 years as India's negotiator at the WTO. If you're talking Chinese foreign policy, you will be taught by a professor who speaks Chinese, who has dealt with China. If you want to do Southeast Asian politics, we have a professor who has spent the larger part of his life traveling to Southeast Asia, specializing in Southeast Asian politics. So I would say that if you ask me what is the unique selling proposition, the USP of Jindal's School of International Affairs, it is, I think, the quality of the faculty, which I believe has performed, has acquired expertise, and will be happy to share that expertise with students. So that's the first point I would make. The second thing that I would say about the Bachelor of Arts degree, Global Affairs, is that we also have exchange programs with some universities in the world. The list is growing. It's not a very big list at this point, but we do have the possibility of BAGA students doing 1 semester, for example, at the Graduate School of International Studies in Geneva. I spent 10 years in Geneva as India's negotiator. I know how good the graduate school in Geneva is. And the very fact that you will do a semester at this school in Geneva will expose you to the different international organizations that are present in Geneva. It gives you an opportunity to interact with international civil servants. It gives you an opportunity later on maybe to intern with some of these international organizations in Geneva. We have similar arrangements in Costa Rica. We have similar arrangements with the University of Warsaw. We have also links with the University of Utrecht in Netherlands. So this is again at the level of the bachelor's degree. This is something uncommon. Not many BA degrees offered by Indian academic institutions and Indian universities will give you this chance of doing an semester abroad. We call it the exchange program and the semester abroad. So I believe this gives you a very, very important exposure at a very, very young age. To do it at the master's and the PhD level is different. But as I said, to do it when you are young and when you're doing a bachelor's degree just gives you that much of a head start as compared to other bachelor degrees offered by other institutions. So I would make this point as well. The third point that I would make is we also have an exciting summer school program, which unfortunately this year we couldn't have, given the extraordinary circumstances surrounding the coronavirus. But we have 2 summer school programs for our Bachelor of Arts Global Affairs, the BAGA students. One is at the Fletcher School of Diplomacy. The other is the Oxford University. Both are exciting. And if you are passionate about diplomatic practice, diplomacy, and international affairs, you go to Fletcher's. If you want a broader perspective and you're talking of international development, international organizations, and so on, you could go to Oxford. These are, of course, I must clarify, paid by the students, so it doesn't come free. But there is, I think, a fantastic opportunity for students to avail of this amazing possibility to go to Fletcher's, go to Oxford. It lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. I think what this does is it gives you a chance, even when you are doing BAGA, to just listen to world-class professors. It enables you to compare notes, and frankly, that's a good thing, for professors like me, because we would like to be measured against the best and see if we come short. We get feedback from the students as to what the professor taught at Fletcher's or Oxford, and it's a constant learning experience for professors as well. So I think of it as an amazing possibility to get exposed to the best in the business at a very, very young age. I must also mention that if you are a student of BAGA, the BAGA program at the Jindal School of International Affairs, you also have the possibility to learn a foreign language. So one of my colleagues, who was a vice dean as well, was Syria's deputy minister. He was Syria's ambassador in Delhi. He teaches not just diplomatic practice, but also Arabic. And Arabic is an important language if you wish to specialize in India's near abroad, which is the Gulf and the Arab world. Then it's an exciting opportunity to be learning Arabic. We have similar opportunities for Chinese, where there is the Taiwanese Institute, which has got excellent professors who teach Chinese. And that is a great way to learn Chinese from people whose mother tongue is Chinese. We have similar opportunities in French and Spanish. I must tell you that in most top-class universities abroad, if you are an expert in a particular region of the world, one of the things that is going to make an enormous difference to your CV and to your skill acquisition is language. If it is hard for me to accept that somebody can be a Chinese expert without knowing the Chinese language. You can be an armchair expert, that is true. But if you want to be a genuine expert in a particular region or a particular part of the world, then I'm sorry, but you will just have to go out of your way and try to learn the language, because without knowing the language, you are no expert. You become an armchair expert, as I said. So I would say that learning a language, or at least introducing you to a foreign language, even when you are doing your Bachelor of Arts degree at the Jindal School of International Affairs, is fantastic, because once you have that that elementary knowledge of a foreign language, then you can build on it. And that is something that a lot of our students have been able to do. So these things make a very, very big difference to the Bachelor of Arts Global Affairs. I wanted to address the question of what you will do after BAGA. What can you possibly do? So we will begin by looking at the civil service exam, because that is that's of personal importance to me. I wrote that exam and got into the Indian Foreign Service, and I think if some of you, I hope, will want to do a career in diplomacy and become Indian diplomats, and I think this course is a good way of doing it. You will still have to take the subject that is prescribed, political science and international relations, in the civil service exam. But I do believe this course will help you address the broader aspects of Indian foreign policy, Indian diplomacy, and just the international relations landscape in order to be able to address the questions better. In my own class, where I teach diplomatic practice, we have established a Friends of the Civil Service group, which a handful of students who get together and who are committed to taking the civil service exam. So that is something that I would strongly recommend to people who want a career in diplomacy. There is nothing like belonging to your own country's diplomacy. In fact, I would go one step further and say that if a choice is given to you between joining the Indian Foreign Service and the UN bureaucracy, I would say straight away join the Indian Foreign Service any day. representing your country, representing your motherland, and making a difference to your country is much more exciting, much more challenging, and much more satisfying than really working for the international bureaucracy. But that's just my personal view. But that's the other thing that you can do after a BAGA. I would have to say that a lot of people who do the Bachelor of Arts program in the Jindal School of International Affairs don't stop with Bachelor of Arts. They obviously go on to do a master's degree. They often go abroad to do that, or they do a Master of Arts in Diplomacy, Law, Business, about which I will talk in a minute or two. This is the MADLB course that the Jindal School of International Affairs offers. But it's important to keep in mind what you want to do post BAGA. We've got a fair bunch of people who have gone on to do masters, who have gone abroad. We've got also a fair number of people who are doing masters in international relations at other universities, or the MADLB in Jindal School of International Affairs itself. More than anything else, I would say it also allows you an opportunity to take stock of your life after the BAGA. The BAGA, if it is for those students who are passionate about international affairs, then the choice is clear. You will do an MA in international relations, you will go on to do a PhD, you will end up either in academia, research, or whatever. But if not, if some of you are seeking the BAGA as a bridge, as I said earlier, then you kind of take stock after the BAGA. One possibility is to go on to do law. We've got a few students who do that, and they join the Jindal Global University. As you know, we have a flagship course, which is the law course at the Jindal Global University, and you can do that. Some do MBA. They suddenly realize, okay, we need to do an MBA. You can do that. Or, as I said, you can also do the MADLB, which is the Diplomacy, Law, Business Master's course at Jindal. But whichever way you decide to choose, the BAGA, I think, offers you tremendous exposure to the international relations system, as I call it. The fact of the matter is, no matter what profession you choose today, you want to be a professor, you want to be a diplomat, you want to work for an embassy based in Delhi, and this is not something we do with Indian embassies abroad, but a lot of embassies based in Delhi, they want Indians, young Indians, to work in the embassy as political specialists. And this is something that is very valuable to them. Rather than, let's take the example of the Brazilian embassy, or the American embassy, or the UK embassy. Rather than train an American diplomat in Indian politics, which is going to take a substantial amount of time and resources, much better to get an Indian, assist the political officer in the American embassy. Look at the elections in Uttar Pradesh. Look at the elections in Punjab. Look at the elections in Rajasthan. This is not something that can be done very easily by American diplomats, because they just come on a posting to India for 3 years and then they are moved out. So there are many embassies in Delhi will be very happy to have people who have done BAGA or MADLB, and then will ask you to prove or to share your expertise with regard to the situation in India. And this will give, we have a couple of people who have done this, and they're enormously successful because they bring a particular perspective to bear on their job, which is not done if you just have an ordinary Bachelor of Arts degree from any other university. So I just wanted to finish on the BAGA part by telling you this. If this course was available in 1978 when I was to do my bachelor's, I would have grabbed it, frankly. Because for those people who are clear that international affairs is something that they're passionate about, the degree offers itself as an automatic choice. But even for those who aren't sure, what I call the bridge possibility of using this course, I would say that this is an excellent course which offers you an international perspective. I wanted to end my presentation with regard to BAGA by saying that no matter what job you do these days, it is very important to have an international perspective, because if you are in the corporate sector, you are constantly dealing with foreign countries. And maybe if you're working for an Indian company and you've specialized in the Latin American region from the Jindal School of International Affairs, and that would be a great opportunity for the Indian company to go to Latin America. So no matter what profession you choose, it's very important to have an exposure to the international relations system. So from that point of view, I would strongly recommend the BAGA for these two kinds of students. I will now, if you allow me, move on to the Master of Arts course, which is DLB, MA DLB. DLB stands for Diplomacy, Law and Business. And this Master of Arts course is open to all open to all who have bachelor degrees in Indian universities. It's obviously 2 years duration, and it again gives you important perspectives in 3 areas, as the course spells out, which is diplomacy, law, and business. The idea is that, and that is one thing I must say also about the Jindal Global University, we pride ourselves as a university which encourages interdisciplinary specialization or interdisciplinarity. We don't believe that learning must happen in compartments. We do not believe that if you belong to a school in the Jindal Global University, you stick to your subject, you stick to the school, and you don't meet anybody else. In fact, the one thing that this course, Master of Arts, DLB, Diplomacy, Law, Business, sorry, demonstrates is that there is a lot of cross-fertilization going on between the School of International Affairs, the school, the law school, and the School of Business, which is, I thought, a fantastic alternative to many other degrees, because you get you get to opt for the best courses in law, and you can do cross electives, which is across schools. So if you are doing MA DLB, you can take courses which interest you from the law school. You can take courses which interest you from the School of International Affairs. And I myself have done 2 courses with MA DLB so far. The 3 years that I have spent at the Jindal School of International Affairs, I've taken 1 elective which is on WTO law. Again, something based on practical experience. I was a panelist who was trying to solve a number of legal disputes between United States and Europe. I've done about 12 disputes between the two. So it gives me some opportunity to share my practical experience of how the WTO trade law operates in practice. And similarly, you will also get an opportunity, if you're doing MA DLB, to take electives in special regions of the world. As I said, China could be one, Southeast Asia could be another, conflict, peace and conflict could be one option, human rights is another. So School of International Affairs offers you enormous opportunities when you're doing MA DLB to pick these electives. Similarly, when it comes to business, the business school, the School of Business, you could also try and pick subjects that are relevant for you. So the MA DLB offers you an extraordinary opportunity to understand the cross-section between diplomacy, law, and business. There are not too many courses that I can think of in India which do that. And it is a fact, having been a diplomat, I can confirm that actually there is a lot of cross-fertilization between the worlds of diplomacy, law, and business. For example, if you are a diplomat today, the one thing that is going to matter most as an Indian diplomat is not political reporting. I mean, when I joined the Foreign Service in 1981, it was all about political reporting. Now, the challenge facing an Indian diplomat is Indian business. How do you promote Indian business abroad? That is your foremost challenge. Your understanding of climate change, so that India can participate in climate change negotiations meaningfully. That is the other challenge. The third area of challenge is cybersecurity. How is e-commerce going to affect a country like India? How is artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics? So you will quickly understand that the intersection between diplomacy, law, and business is hugely important. You take law, for example. In each of these areas, human rights, climate change, e-commerce, artificial intelligence, the main lacuna today is the lack of regulation. So it's very important to understand where legal jurisprudence is heading in the areas like e-commerce, in areas like climate change. What about environmental law? So that is something that this course, MADLB, brings into sharp relief, demonstrating that these three areas of diplomacy, law, business are not watertight compartments, but actually closely interrelated. So that is what we try to do in the MADLB. I also wanted to say that one of the other things that we try to do at the Jindal School of International Affairs, both BA-GA and MA-DLB, is acquisition of what I call critical thinking skills. In fact, if you ask me frankly, the most important challenge that a professor faces today is to try to impart critical thinking skills and really the ability for a student to learn, relearn, and unlearn. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be absolutely at a loose end. Things are changing so fast that whatever you learn at your school is not going to be of permanence anymore. You will have to reinvent yourself, and the pace at which technology is changing, the pace at which this world is changing, you need these two skills. So if I was a headhunter, and I have been a headhunter in the past, if you tell me that you are a specialist in China and you come for an interview, the last thing that I'm going to ask you is, do you know enough about China? That is almost a given. If you've done an MBA, if you've done an MADLB, if you've done a BAGA, I know that you know the basics. Otherwise, I know you're no good. So that is not what I am looking for. What I am looking for in young people, when you recruit them for either courses or you recruit them for jobs, is can they look at an issue from all angles? That is the most important thing. So critical thinking skill for me involves 3 steps. 1, you gather evidence, facts, information, evidence. And obviously, these days with fake news and so on, you have to be careful about 2 things. 1, multiple sources of information, and second, independent verification. You need to do both before you have the facts in front of you. This is an ability that we try to impart at the Jindal School of International Affairs and indeed at the Jindal Global University. We are trying to inculcate the skill of gathering evidence, ruthless, unpolitical, non-prejudiced evidence from multiple sources. And that is the first step in critical thinking. Second, you analyze the evidence. And this calls for a particular skill as well. You know, how you treat evidence, what weight you give to opposing evidence, keeping your personal prejudice aside, is a skill. And you ought to be able to do that as a young adult. And this is something that I always try to include in my classes, to just make sure that students know that there is an alternative point of view. You may not agree with it, and you may decide to ignore it, but at a minimum, you should be able to accept that there are varying interpretations to one objective phenomenon, and that is something that you ought to be able to do. So that's the second. The third, of course, is come to a reasoned, balanced judgment. One of the most difficult things that I had to do in my 36 years in the Indian Foreign Service is, how are you going to base a decision on two things? In almost always, life is not about right or wrong, because that is easy. Anybody can do that. You will always be faced with two situations. One, a situation which does not give you enough time to make a decision, so you have pressure of time. Secondly, you're going to have insufficient evidence. You're not going to have all the evidence in front of you. So how are you going to react? And this, again, I would say calls for critical thinking. And this is something that we try to do through our classes. In my own case, one of the best ways I have found of teaching, even to BAGA, would be using practical case studies. So if I am teaching, and just to give you an example, if I'm teaching a break in diplomatic relations, let's say two countries decide to break diplomatic relations, I always think of this example between India and Morocco. And most people don't even know that Morocco broke off diplomatic relations with India in 1986 because India decided to recognize a state called Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. In retrospect, I believe it was a wrong decision, but we did it anyway. And Morocco chose to break off diplomatic relations. Now, invariably, when two countries break off diplomatic relations and the diplomats go home, then that is the end of the matter. But in the case of Morocco and India, some of us stayed back. So the Indian flag, the Indian diplomatic passport was not valid. So we took refuge with the Austrian embassy, and we established an Indian interest section at the embassy of Austria to get some diplomatic immunity to serve and try to advance India's interests in Morocco. So the quick point I'm making is, learning either in BAGA or an MADLB will be largely case study based. And this is extremely important for me, because no matter how much theory you acquire, how much theory you listen to, how much lectures you listen to, at the end of the day, what sticks in your mind is the practical examples that you've heard. So if a student hears about this, he will never need to be reminded of how two countries break diplomatic relations. So these are some of the techniques that we use, and I'm trying now to tell you what techniques professors use at the Jindal Global University and at the Jindal School of International Affairs. A lot of MA courses may well be based on case studies, to be fair, but I cannot imagine very many universities where at the level of BAGA, that is the Bachelor of Arts Global Affairs, where they are exposed to such case study. So all in all, I would say that it's a great place to come and learn. The academic atmosphere is open. We are not here to influence your political views or your views with regard to subjects, but we do want to encourage you to think of all angles. We believe that there has got to be a plurality of views on any given issue, that it shouldn't be monolithic, and a monolithic point of view is always a disaster. And I think the academic freedom that you get at the Jindal Global University and at the Jindal School of International Affairs, I would say, is something that is unparalleled. So I'm going to stop here and maybe take questions, if that is okay. Can I just ask one of the moderators to take over from here?
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Thank you for the elaborate presentation. I think you have connected all the dots and have answered to most of the doubts, not just about careers in international relations, but also you have given us an in-depth understanding about the subject and how we teach in our classroom. So thank you so much once again for the lovely presentation. I now move ahead with some of the questions that we have been getting from our participants. The first question that I have for you, sir, is how do students prepare for UPSC while pursuing BAGA or BA Honors Global Affairs?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. My first answer to that question is that this is a very, very peculiar exam in the sense that it is that the luck of the draw makes such a big difference. And I'm not saying, therefore, that you should not prepare. To the contrary, I think you should prepare. But what I'm trying to tell you is my advice to people is the earlier you begin, the better. So a first year at the BAGA at the Jindal School of International Affairs would be a perfect time to start. And at least start with the last 10 years of prelims, the subjects. We have governance, we have science, we have economics. So all those issues you can start off straight away, and then also choose the subject that you want to do: anthropology, political science, sociology. One of the interesting things that I learned, I go to address the Indian Foreign Service probationers or officer trainees, and I was surprised last year to know that 70% of the Indian Foreign Service officer trainees have got an engineering background. So I automatically assumed that those engineers would have taken their respective subjects in the exam. I was mistaken. So most engineers take political science as the subject, anthropology as a subject, sociology as a subject. So I asked the engineers, why did you take political science? You are a mechanical engineer. You should be taking mechanical engineering. But they told me, no, the mechanical engineering is a difficult exam, so I would prefer to take something like sociology, pol science, etc. So the first answer to your question is, you need tremendous industry. You know the word industry, to take this exam. You need patience, you need persistence, and you need a stubborn kind of work method. So the sooner you start, the better. And I encourage people to start even in the first year. The other advice I would give to those who are interested in the UPSC exam is, I have no shame in admitting to all of you that I did not get it the first time. I joined the railway. I did not join the railway service, but that's what I got in 1980. So I took the exam again and then joined the foreign service. My advice is, you need to take this exam at least twice or thrice. I am not in favor of people taking the exam 5 or 6 times. That is stupid in my view. That is a complete waste of time, frankly. Even if you get it, I would say it's a complete nonsense of the whole thing, because by the time you join, if you're 28, 30 years old, it makes no sense to join the civil service. So 2 things. 1, start as early as you can. Be prepared to take the exam at least twice. And thirdly, don't think this is the end of the world if you don't get it. Okay? So it is luck of the draw. It's 1 million people taking the exam for 30 seats in the foreign service and about 100, 120 in the Indian administrative service. So it is not a reflection on your merit. Take it. If you don't get it, forget it and move on. Maybe life has something better in store for you. Okay?
Thank you so much, sir. I think that's a nice way to put it across, that you need to have patience, but at the same time you should not take things too further. So thank you for the answer. But next question is regarding internship. What are the kind of internships that we provide, and do we have tie-up with the United Nations in terms of internship as well?
Okay, so we do not have a direct tie-up with a UN organization, but I would say the internships are as follows. The first kind of internship that you can get is with the embassies based in Delhi. So we've got a fair number of people now with the Brazilian embassy, with some other embassies, and they have had very interesting tenures in those embassies. We encourage also our students to join as interns with the MEA itself, with the Ministry of External Affairs. The Ministry of External Affairs has a program as well of internship. And since I was associated with the Ministry of External Affairs before, certainly we try to encourage our students to join the Ministry of External Affairs for a brief period of time. The third thing we do is I'm also, in addition to being Vice Dean and Professor, I'm also Chairman or a head of a think tank in Delhi called RIS, Research and Information System for Developing Countries. We do a lot of work on economics, trade, investment, and technology. So if people are interested to do a stint with think tanks like mine, RIS, but also other think tanks, there are people who have gone and done stints with ORF, with RIS, with ICWA, IDSA. Those are things we can encourage, think tanks based in Delhi. The last thing, and I know that a lot of people are interested in UN assignments. So it's my duty to speak the truth. So don't get me wrong. The United Nations is one of the most difficult things to get into for an Indian male. I say Indian male, and I will explain why I say Indian male. We contribute to the UN only about 0.32% or so. For that contribution, Indians are already overrepresented in the UN. So it is not easy to get into the United Nations for an Indian. If you're an Indian male, it is virtually zero. If you're an Indian female, it's better. At least you can say gender balance and equal opportunity. So that is the honest answer. Having said that, if you are still desperate to join the UN, I still make my original point. Any day, I prefer to be with the Indian Foreign Service than the UN. And by the way, the salary and the scales in the Indian Foreign Service are also now much better than when I joined. But without getting into the money aspect, if you are still very, very keen to get into the UN, there is only one way, and that is to take UN field assignments in places where nobody else will go. For example, would you like to go, let us say, to Mali? Would you like to go to very, very difficult parts of the world, Yemen? Would you like to go now to Yemen, which is a conflict-ridden zone? And would you like to work for the UN, collecting statistics, doing field work, or if you're working for the UN High Commissioner of Refugees, doing some work of that kind? That is one way in which to get into the UN system. You can start there and then hope to work your way up. But that is a personal choice. But I thought I had to be frank in answering that question about the United Nations.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. Next question for you is, what is the importance of critical thinking in this subject?
So as I said, if I am looking to choose somebody to work in an organization, if I am looking to recruit somebody for the Indian Administrative Service, Indian Foreign Service, if I am part of the hiring board of the Stanford, Harvard, Fletcher School of Diplomacy, I'll be honest with you, I will be, of course, impressed if the student comes to me and says, I've got an outstanding O in all grades, or I've got an A+. But I want to make this point to all of you that that will only get you this far. What the potential employer, the potential university, they are looking for is your ability to bring your perspective to bear on issues which matter in the world. For example, let's say I'm asking you a question on the French Revolution, right? A lot of people know French Revolution 1789, and the slogan was liberty, equality, and fraternity. So if in the UPSC exam or in the interview, you are asked a question about the French Revolution, and you say, sir, this is liberty, equality, fraternity, 1789, etc., etc., you may or may not get the best grade because you have not brought your critical thinking skills. What you have done is you've crammed a textbook on liberty, equality, fraternity, and you have regurgitated that in front of the interview board. Now that's okay. What I am looking for is interpretation of liberty, equality, fraternity to the social inequality in India. For example, there was a student who answered me on this issue by telling me that the Maoist movement in India, in Chhattisgarh and other places, has some similarity to liberty, equality, and fraternity. That is bringing critical thinking skills to the issue. I did not raise that issue with the student. The student was a brilliant student, and he said, sir, the French Revolution is fine, but I want to see how I can apply it to the Maoist movement in India. That is critical thinking. And I hope I've given you a concrete example to demonstrate how this critical thinking skills are going to be the most important if you either want to write an exam, you want to go before the interview board, you want to go and study at Harvard. This is what people are looking for. They are not just looking for textbook knowledge. That's what I meant to say. Hello? Yes, I finished answering that question. Hello, can you hear me?
So I think there's a problem in Riddhiman's network. I just read out the another question, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Kumar, I'm back.
He's back.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm back. Yes,
Thank you.
Sorry, there was an interruption in the Wi-Fi.
But, did they hear my answer?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. I move on to the next question. Could you please elaborate on the collaboration that we have with the Geneva School of Diplomacy in terms of...
Okay, so I also leave it to you to add on to what I say, because I may not know the full facts, but I do know that you can spend a semester in Geneva instead of spending the last semester or the penultimate semester at Jindal. You can spend that semester in Geneva, and you obviously will not have, you will only pay the fees that you pay at Jindal, and the living costs will have to be borne by you. But this is something that needs to be checked out because I honestly don't know the logistics and the fee. But what I do know is your opportunity to spend that semester in Geneva is invaluable, because frankly, just to get the kind of exposure that you get by doing a semester at the Geneva Graduate School of Diplomacy is enormous. No other person of that age will get that opportunity when you're doing a bachelor's degree. So that is what I want to push. But as for the financial and the logistical details, honestly, I will admit I'm not completely au fait, but I do know that instead of the semester in Jindal, you go and do the semester in Geneva, and we will give you credits. I hope you can add to this. Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Kumar, am I audible
Yes.
to you?
Yes, you are. No, I
Thank
was
you.
hoping you can add to this if you have the knowledge, or we can write to them separately.
I think I have their questions as well as their contact details. I will write to them separately, explaining
Please
about
do.
the entire, the opportunity that we have for them for the, Geneva School of Diplomacy. I
Please
will
do.
take the final question for today's session. I'm still getting a lot of questions. However, since we are in short of time, but we promise to get back to all the applicants and participants with the answers, and we would respond back to all their queries. The last and final question for you, Dr. Kumar, would be for somebody who is looking to prepare for UPSC, what is a better opportunity if whether they study political science at General School of International Affairs or they take up BA Global Affairs? Which one would you recommend?
Okay, so that's a tough one, frankly, because both are being offered by the General School of International Affairs. And if I suggest one, some of my colleagues will murder me. So I'm joking. But, the reason why I can only tell you what I would do. And frankly, it's up to you. If you are taking the civil service exam, I would say it is good to have a plan B. I'm being brutally honest with all of you. I had a plan B. That's why I did my MBA from FMS. I took the exam twice. And if the second time I had not got the foreign service and I had got some other service like the railways, I would have said, thank you very much. I'm going to go and join Procter and Gamble. I was working with Tatas at the time. So I was not interested. So the first thing I would say is be clear about what you want in the UPSC. Do you want a government job at any cost? Or do you want only a particular service like me? I was very keen to join the foreign service, not any other service. That's the first. The second is have a plan B, because this exam is not a difficult exam, but its outcome is not within your hands. I know some brilliant people who have not made it. I know some less brilliant people who have made it. Okay, so you can be sure that if you are an idiot, you will not make it. But that doesn't mean that if you're super brilliant, you can be sure of making it. So have a plan B. If you want to have a plan B, I would argue that the BAGA offers you more opportunities than many other degrees. That is, I will limit myself to answering that. I think the BAGA gives you more options. You can still take the exam, take it once or twice. If you get it, fine. If you don't get it, move on in life. It's not the end of the world, but at least you can then develop a career in international relations. For that reason, I would say BAGA is good. The BA Political Science that the Jindal School of International Affairs is offering from this year is a very unique course, and it is meant for people who are passionately involved and want to be passionately involved in Indian politics or global politics. For example, one of the things that you can do after doing BA Political Science in the School of International Affairs is that you go on to advise a politician. That is something that you can do. So it's a different course, I would say. So from my perspective, BAGA is good. So is BA Political Science if you're very, very fond of Indian politics and so on. But otherwise, BAGA probably offers a better platform to do other things. But I am biased when I say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. I think you have answered to most of the queries put up by the participants. And as I said, we will get back to the participants who have put in their questions, but we will respond to them with our answers. And I hope to get back to our participants with some of such interesting topics from your side. And we will keep all the participants posted about our upcoming webinars. And I would like to thank you once again for the lovely presentation, and I would also like to thank all the participants for their attendance today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.